Hey guys, this is your host Austin. I did just want to let you know that this episode we did have a little bit of audio trouble, so there are some parts that might sound a little bit robotic or where our mics have a slight echo to them. I hope that you'll bear with it. It is one of my favorite episodes. It's a super interesting one, so please give it a listen. Let us know what you think, and as always, thanks for the support.
We are recording the day after Election Day here, so it's interesting.
And we still don't know.
Yeah, we probably won't know until like Friday. Honestly.
Well, I heard that there was supposedly a state that was like, we're going to have our counts in a week.
Yeah, because they had so many more people did mail-in, so there's more time apparently.
I also heard that they were expecting to get a shipment of special votes.
What does that even mean?
Means that they are special. And all for one person.
Which one?
I think you know.
The good one.
That doesn't help at all. They're both terrible.
Before we get too political and lose listeners, why don't we just move on here?
No, people love hearing about politics. It doesn't get anyone riled up at all. Abortion, am I right?
Oh my gosh.
Okay, we're moving on.
If you are still listening, I don't know why.
What's today's episode on there, Austin?
Well, hold up now. We got some stuff to go through here.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry. Jeez.
Jack is trying to move past our religious energy beverage. You okay there, pal? What
Just
did
got
you
a
do?
Charlie horse in my jaw.
Were you really trying to pop it open with your teeth?
No, I
trying
just
to
wanted to see
shotgun
how
that
deep
thing.
throat I could do it.
This is an episode for the ages right here. Oh my gosh.
But clearly you're talking about deep throat.
Dude, you
from
must have a huge mouth.
You can't fit that in your mouth?
No.
That's what she said.
I do have a pretty small mouth, though. No, I cannot.
We really need to set up a camera and
I cannot.
get some extra footage.
Well,
For
here
the
we
premium
go.
members.
We are drinking Mango Matic Monster Max. We got to read the description on the back. It says, nitrous technology. Don't let the sleek can fool you. Monster Max is fully loaded and packs our biggest punch.
Wait. Why would the sleek can fool me? If it's sleek, wouldn't I want it more?
No, maybe
Wouldn't it be cool?
If
Maybe
it's
it's
sleek,
like
you think it's like
it's-
smooth and
yeah,
nice
it's-
and
it's like-
easy.
Or are they just saying sleek as in like slim?
sleek,
'cause-
as in like it's like probably
this-
like a little
Because
girly drink,
this is the same
like
like
LaCroix or whatever that stuff is called.
McCroy?
LaCroix.
Oh,
You ever had
yes,
that?
Yes,
It
LaCroix.
tastes like somebody poured water into
Farted
a
in your
jug, and there was
water?
like fruit in the same room as that.
It's like they got Sprite, like this much Sprite, and then like 3 cups of water. on top
Sprite
of it.
minus the lime and
and
lemon.
they like put a strawberry flavored candy in there for like 10 seconds and then took it out.
They took a handful of Jolly Ranchers, swirled it with
Get
a
us a
spoon.
pop right next to your mic.
Well, I gotta finish. It
Oh,
says,
sorry.
call us crazy, but we supercharged our Monster Energy base, then injected it. That doesn't sound good. Injected it with nitrous oxide.
Wait, that's not healthy.
No. For a smooth, unique texture. Drinks have texture. Out of this world flavor and big bang buzz. Hop on the rocket ship and enjoy the ride. Monster Max knows no limits. Unleash the beast. Unleash the Nitro Beast.
This is Mango Matic.
Ow!
Has anything gone right yet?
No.
But this does have the profile of like a Red Bull.
It does.
So maybe that's what they're talking about, sleek.
It's the thin can.
Ooh. I like that.
It's a little too mango-y for me, but if you like mango, you'd like it. I'm just not a huge mango guy.
I'm not a huge mango guy, but I really like that. It reminds me a lot of the Ultra Fiesta one.
I like the
Really
Ultra
tried?
Fiesta a little bit better.
So I am a huge mango guy. And I'm a
You
huge
don't look
Monster
like a
Max guy. What?
You don't look like a mango guy. You look just like a regular guy.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Did you get it?
Yeah,
Okay.
I did.
That's, like,
See,
like
I can't-
you say, like, I'm I feel like a mango right now. And you're like, funny, you don't look like a mango.
I can't wait for the
Never
day
mind.
that you both become fathers, so that your level of humor will ascend to that of mine,
Oh, please.
and you'll instantly
You're almost to our
get the
level.
dad
To
humor.
ascend like North Korea's rockets, to then quickly descend and explode in its own country, killing thousands of its own citizens.
You mean 0 on a paper?
See, Ryan, from your very limited perspective right now, since you are not yet a father, you don't understand that it is, yes, right now it might appear as a decline, but once you become a father and you have the dad humor thrust upon you, you will realize that it's actually a higher plane of humor.
How would you know if you're on a higher plane while you're on it? You have to be above it to see down. We can see you from where we stand.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can see your plane from where I now stand.
No. I'm telling you, that's a fake plane. We're in a real fighter jet above that plane.
You are in Malaysian Airlines Flight 370.
Speaking of
Which
which,
crashed, or we don't know what happened to it. We don't know what happened to your sense of humor, Jack, is basically what I'm saying.
I'm hilarious.
It's gone. It's been missing for...
We have 9 minutes of utter garbage. Let's get on with this episode, huh?
This one is a little rough.
Is there not any more space news or anything
Do we
like
want to
that?
do space news now? We've been doing it at the end, but we can
No,
do
we
it
haven't.
now.
We always forget to.
Okay, why
Personally, I always loved space news.
Because we have a legendary friend named Brad. I hope he doesn't mind that I called him out on the podcast.
I think we called him out before, so.
Yeah, so Brad is a legend, and he sent me some really cool space news. NASA has absolutely 100% confirmed that water has been spotted on the sunlit surface of the moon.
I've read that, yeah.
I heard something
So
about
there is
that.
100% water on the moon now.
Oh, I think I heard it from Brad.
So that is confirmed, and if that's possible, then
Is it ice or is it water?
it's water.
Wow.
Liquid?
Yes, liquid water.
Is it,
How would that be possible on the moon?
Okay, here's what it says. Lunar water is water that is present on the moon. Diffuse water molecules can persist at the moon's sunlit surface as discovered by NASA's SOFIA Observatory in 2020. Some water vapor is decomposed by sunlight, with hydrogen quickly lost to outer space. There you go, Ryan.
So it's vapor.
No, it's vapor that is decomposed by sunlight. So it's water vapor.
So when they
that
say
is-
decompose, they saying melted?
I don't know, decomposed.
decomposed?
That's what it says. The
Doesn't
water
make
vapor
sense.
decomposes into water, and there's hydrogen that is then released into
Could I
space.
drink it?
Yes, that is the question.
Could I drink it and live?
And would it be the most refreshing
Oh,
glass
you-
of water?
It's like,
Okay.
you need water? Like, nah, I don't. It's fine. I don't want any water. Oh, it's moon water. Crack me open one of them cold moon waters.
Maybe next episode we'll
Drink some moon water.
have some of that.
Speaking of cracking open water, do you know Dasani now sells water in cans?
What?
Yeah, I saw a can of Dasani at Walmart the other day.
Cans.
Yep.
Yep.
That
I
just
do.
doesn't seem right to me.
But like, can you imagine like if you got a cold one like in the fridge and crack it open?
Ooh.
A cold can is so good.
That would be nice,
It would be
actually.
such cool and crisp water.
But would it be better coming out of a cold can or a cold glass bottle? Like
I'm
if you
honestly
had-
gonna go with the can. I
If you had glass bottle water, like classic glass bottle soda.
maybe if it was like in a cooler, you know, like when they like pull it in the beer commercials, it's covered in like the ice and the frost and whatnot.
See, I've never seen. No, Voss does glass.
They
They
used
do,
to. They
right?
don't anymore.
They do plastic now?
Plastic now.
I've never had glass water.
Okay, well,
It's good.
here's another little paragraph on this. So it says, Sophia, which is the observation base, has detected water molecules in Clavius crater, one of the largest craters visible from Earth, located in the moon's southern hemisphere, which is the sunlit part. Previous observations of the moon's surface detected some form of hydrogen, but were unable to distinguish between water and its close chemical relative hydroxyl. Data from this location reveal water in concentrations of 100 to 412 parts per million, roughly the equivalent to a 12-ounce bottle of water trapped in a cubic meter of soil. spread across the lunar surface.
Gah.
So water molecules,
Yeah,
but
it's something.
they say that opens the possibility of water being anywhere across the surface of the moon.
Wait, so is this on the light side or the dark side?
This is on the
Light.
light side that they've observed it. This is on the light side, but they say that that opens up the possibility of it being anywhere on the moon.
How much of the dark side have we explored?
Not
Not much.
Depends on what you mean by explored. Like, with people being on the dark side? Or with just...
rovers, anything that...
Oh, there's... they've got an orbiting thing around the moon, so they're
Orbiting the
constantly
moon?
looking.
I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
So you can pull up on Google Earth. You can look at the moon, and you can look at the dark side and things
That would
on
be
it.
called Google Moon, then.
Yeah,
Ooh.
one of our most recent space newses was, I don't know if it was the most recent, but
Space news?
fairly recent space news was that
Space newsies.
Newsies.
China found that substance on the moon that was some, like, I don't remember what kind of substance it was, like
I
a
remember it was
glass
like a
type
slime
substance or
or
a
a
slime or something,
goo.
kind of like a gelatinous type thing. I think they
Well,
called
that
it.
is China. Can we trust them?
I don't know.
What would they be trying to pull?
Coronavirus.
Oh!
Maybe that's where coronavirus came
They
from.
bottled
it's
it
a
up,
moon virus.
brought it back.
Coronavirus. You guys heard that song?
No.
That's funny. Yeah, okay, never
Is
mind.
it by Tom McDonald?
I don't remember who it's by.
Is it a rapper?
Yeah,
It's probably Tom McDonald, then.
I don't know, but probably. I don't. You? Yeah, sure.
Anyway, that's neat.
Yeah, so that's space news. Do we want to do an encounter this episode, or do we want to move straight into?
I don't think we have time.
Okay.
It's going to take a while, I think.
Okay.
I think. Maybe we'll do an encounter at the end if we have time. How's that?
Yeah, we'll see where we're at on time. But we are moving into the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 or MH370.
I
Which,
remember when this happened. I remember hearing about it in school.
Yep.
And it was...
Wait, it was it was somewhat around
it's like
9/11, wasn't it?
No, this is
2014.
2014.
What?
Yeah.
Whoa. What? I don't remember, because I was already married. That doesn't make sense in my time scale.
I was on my mission at this time, so I don't remember hearing anything about it.
Anyway, if you don't know the story, a quick recap is that a flight going from Malaysia, it's flight number 370 obviously, was headed to Beijing, China, which is, I think it was like a 14-hour flight or something like that.
I want to say it was.
I'm pretty sure
5 to
there's
7
a
hour flight.
layover somewhere.
I want to say it was a 5 to 7 hour flight, and this specific plane had flown that route tons of times.
Yeah, it did it like weekly or something like that.
They said that with the flight hours and the amount of time that it had flown, that they estimated it had flown this route. This exact plane had flown this route like 350 times or something. So it knew that, like, the plane, it wasn't that difficult of a route.
Yeah.
And the pilots themselves, they say, had flown this route as well. So, fairly well-known route, commonly flown.
Okay, so as they're flying, they fly over the South China Sea. And let's see, there's 10 crew members aboard and 227 passengers. They're flying. They have to go over the South China Sea, and soon they go over what's Vietnam's airspace. And so what they have to do is they sign off. I don't know what it's called.
Air traffic control.
Yeah, they sign off air traffic control from Malaysia, and then once they cross an airspace, they sign in. It's called a handoff, is what it's called. They hand off to them, so then they'll check in and say, this is Malaysia Flight 370.
So is there an overlap in that?
No, there's not. They are on a frequency with one, then they turn off that radio, and I guess they move it over to that other frequency. I guess there could be, but in this case there was not.
So there is not. It is protocol for that to drop for however
That
much
sounds
time
like a
it takes.
stupid protocol. Like, just in the sense of just normal delivery like FedEx or UPS, you track going from one to another, and both sides know that there was the transition. So what I'm saying is, to me it makes sense that they would have both lines open at the same time so that both sides
So Malaysia
hears
knew that Vietnam took over.
exactly.
Well, see, I don't know the details of all of that, but I do know there is a drop. It's typically less than a minute to a couple of minutes before.
It's like 45 seconds. Or
Yeah,
a minute
before
now.
the
So
other
did
country
Vietnam
picks
get
up.
them?
Oh, we're getting there.
So this
I was
drop,
interrupted.
them dropping out of communication for a minute to 3 minutes is normal.
That's
That's
completely
that's not alarming. And they say even if it would have dropped out for more time than that, it's not terribly alarming unless they can never get contact with them again.
So they do the handoff, and they say there's like a special saying you say. It's like Malaysian 370 handoff, something, good night, something like that. They say something. I have it written down somewhere. I'll find it eventually. But they say that, and everything sounds perfectly normal. The air traffic control at Malaysian flights say everything sounded normal, everything was great, everything worked perfectly. They did the handoff. 1 minute and 30 seconds later, after that, it disappears from radar.
Minute and 30 seconds.
1 minute and 30 seconds later, the plane is no longer on radar. And this is confirmed by 3 different places, like Vietnam's radar, Malaysian's radar, and I can't remember what the third one was, but there was another one that had a radar, and I think it was maybe like a military base. So how radars work in... Okay, I guess let me just go through the whole thing. It disappears, and it's never heard from again. That's pretty much the entire story.
So going along with that, sorry, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. So the first thing that happens is minute and 30 after it drops off of Malaysian air traffic control, they lose communication with air traffic control. Then after that, 2 minutes later, the transponder, which is what communicates the location data of the plane, then goes out. After that, 1 minute.
Okay, so keep going, and then we'll go through the time thing again.
After that, there is a system called ACARS, which is... I gotta remember what the acronym means. It's...
Aircraft Communications Addressing and Reporting System.
Yep. So
Well
then
done.
that goes offline a minute after the transponder goes offline. So there's
So there is a succession of individual things going off.
Correct. So there's 3 systems that go off within about 2 to 3 minutes of each other.
Okay, but what... You're missing parts here.
Oh, sorry.
This is way deeper than just like things go offline kind of thing. There are 2 transponders on this Boeing plane. It's a Boeing plane. There are 2 transponders that are in
Now-
charge of radar.
Now, this is a question for a friend of mine. What is it that a transponder does?
I'm explaining it right now. It talks to the radar.
Okay.
It basically, if that's on, radar can find them. If it's off, it can't very easily.
Well, that doesn't sound like a good radar. I thought that a
Location-
radar...
Location reporting.
Okay. So, so when you say that they went off of radar and disappeared from radar, this is what you're talking
Their
about.
transponders went offline, yes.
So, but is there still, though, a radar that can pick them up that's like...
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
So there are 2 transponders for the sole purpose of if one malfunctions, the other can still report. They both went off at the same time, meaning one of 2 things. Either both malfunction at the same time, which could happen in say a crash, a high impact crash, or maybe an electrical fire. But more likely is that they were manually turned off. So they both go off at the same time.
Is that something that can be done, them manually turned
If you
off?
have
Yes.
the knowledge, yes.
Yes.
But seriously, you have to have good knowledge of this plane, which I'd say the captain, maybe the co-pilot, maybe.
So
what do they call it? The sky maids? What do they call them?
The flight attendants.
Flight attendants.
Sky
So
mates.
the transponder. I'd say we should call them. We should petition for that to be the new name. But so these transponders are located in the cockpit, directly above the pilot's head. So he has the ability to turn them off. And
Both of them?
yes. So they're both located in the cockpit with the pilot. The only reason that they would ever turn off is pilots are trained to turn them off if there are either like a dire emergency, like, you know, if they're forced to by a terrorist or something to that effect.
But why? That doesn't make sense. Why would they? It seems like even in a terrorist situation that they would always want everyone to know their location. So that doesn't make sense to me why there would be an emergency to turn them off.
All I know is that in a dire emergency that they can turn them off if they need to, and pilots are trained. I don't know the details of that, so
Who knows why? It is an option.
yeah, it is an option. Or they are also told that if it fails 2 or more times, and they can either like submit a fail report themselves saying, "Hey, this is failing," and it's failed twice, then they'll tell them to turn it off at that point. I don't know why that is either, but so there's really 2 situations where they would manually turn them off in like a legitimate situation.
Okay.
Sorry, you're waiting on me. Okay, so soon after, what was kind of interesting is that like they try contacting and say, "Hey, 370, are you there?" Nothing. After a few hours, I want to say like too long, the military finally gets involved. I think it was actually maybe a few days. But then the military gets involved and says, "Hey, we actually have..." So, like, they started a search in the South China Sea because that's where they were flying over. But then the military comes in later, like a few days later, and says, "We actually have more record of them than you guys do," because they had a better radar system and what is called SATCOM, satellite communication. Anyway, and so I actually drew a little map. You guys can't see it, but so
Oh, that's cute.
so this dotted line here, that's what they were supposed to do. And as you can see here, right right after, like seriously, this is minutes after it went offline, it veered right and started going right, and then took a sharp 180 and started going back to where they came from. And then after heading back a little while from where they came from, it took a hard right. And it was just straight that way. So,
Going in a northwest direction.
northwest. Yeah, not quite northwest, but
So on that little map is up north.
up is north, yes.
Okay.
Well, while Jack's pulling that up, so another important thing to note is going along with why they may have turned back. So, like he said, this is immediately after they lose radio traffic or air traffic control communication. So they turn around, and people theorize that they might have turned around because if there was an electrical fire, then they would want to go back to the nearest landmass, which at that time Malaysia was still the nearest landmass. So they're either going back and attempting to land the plane, or they are going back for some other unknown reason.
So this map that we're looking at, they cross over the island mass, like the longest or the widest part of Malaysia, into South China Sea. At which point how far do you know about how far away they are from the next spot of land? So they're about halfway.
Almost halfway.
Halfway from Malaysia to
Whatever
the
this country is.
Beijing.
Vietnam Peninsula.
Yeah.
And so they're halfway into the China Sea, turn around, and cross over Malaysia again.
What's interesting is they don't just turn around. You see this here? They veer right and start going this way. And then they do a full 180 here. and cross over land. So people are thinking, yeah, there was an electrical fire, it was an emergency landing, they thought that would be the closest area. But then they kept going. And what is interesting is where they take the right turn. This little island right here.
I can't see your cursor.
That island. Right,
Okay.
right next to where the tiny little island that it turned right next to.
Tiny island off the west coast of Malaysia.
Yes, it is called. We skip forward quite a bit in my notes, so I got to scroll quite a bit. Where is it? I don't know what the name of the island is, but yeah, no, I got no idea what it is. Anyway,
I get it.
but that island is the captain's hometown.
The captain of the
His
of the
name
flight.
is. Sorry, we skipped that part. Zahari Shah. His co-pilot was Farik Abdul Hamid. I probably.
Penang Island.
Yeah, that sounds about right. That's where he grew up. Not necessarily grew up, but he was born there, and I think he lived there until he was like 5 or 6 or something like that. Some theories are is that was like his last goodbye to his hometown.
So how big is that though? Because if it's a large city, then
No,
the
it's-
odds that
No, it's not. It's not big at all.
okay.
Anyway, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here.
Right.
But gotta find my notes again.
So you were saying that that the army gets involved and gives them more information of what they picked up on the flight.
Right. So everyone lost communication right here.
Midway in the South China Sea.
Right. But the military had it until that yellow dot over. What ocean is that?
That's the Indian Ocean or
Yeah,
the
that's the Indian Ocean, the northeast Indian Ocean, right over, like right above the most northern point of Indonesia.
it's right where it meets up. There's like the Amardan Ocean or something. If you scroll up a little bit, it's on that map, I think.
Right where the Malacca Strait meets the
Andaman
Yeah.
Sea.
Yeah,
Andaman.
Andaman Sea. So, from everything that I've read and researched into this, them choosing to fly over the Indian Ocean without air traffic control contact, like without the pilots having contact with anybody, was kind of like a death wish. Like, they would have had a very hard time coming out of that without the help of air traffic control.
And yeah, no, they aren't talking to anyone. But there is one chip computer item on board. Their SATCOM. It's like a satellite phone, basically, that will contact a SATCOM station and kind of give it like, say, hey, this is where I am, like every 30 minutes or so. And that actually started communicating with the Australian ground station in Perth, I believe is what it's called. And it was working until just about when the military lost it. They lost it at the same time.
What I find interesting about this path that you're showing is that they are specifically staying on the south end of Thailand, as if, because you would think with this path that they're taking, why not just go straight west?
So-
and you'd be flying over Thailand, but then are they trying to avoid going over Thailand?
You're actually getting into one of the theories.
Okay.
Should I wait for the theory?
Well, just keep going along
mean-
the timeline.
One of the things that's important to note is that where they were going was a heavily traveled flight path, and so the reason that nobody had coverage, like radar coverage of this area except the military, was because it wasn't heavily traveled.
So on the east side of
so-
Thailand and Malaysia, heavily traveled. West side, there's nothing.
So that specific area where the military lost them, where the military had the coverage and then lost it, is an area where airlines didn't have their like radar capabilities concentrated, and so that's
Just 'cause it's
why
not
the
usually
military
used.
picked them up, because the military
They
has
have
more advanced
they-
radar
Yeah,
systems.
military's-
They have them covered everywhere.
Looking over at the coast of
The
everywhere.
airline's not going to be looking somewhere they don't have flights planned for.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So that getting ahead of ourselves ties into one of the theories. So
And another thing, you are right, and I'm going to touch on that just a little bit. If you look where... We're going to have to post a lot of pictures, or you're just going to have to look this up, because I didn't realize how visual this is going to be. So
Well, I think
apologize
we're
for
doing
that.
okay with
I hope-
anyone that looks at a map of Malaysia so far would be able to follow exactly what we're saying with how we've been describing
You can
it.
Google Malaysia Flight 370 flight path, and you'll find it. But if you look right where it passes over Malaysia and Thailand,
Where it's coming, where it has gone out into the South China Sea and then turned around and is crossing back over Malaysia.
if you notice, it goes through Malaysia, then it crosses over into, what's this one?
Thailand.
Thailand, then back into Malaysia, then back into Thailand, then back into Malaysia.
Okay.
So that's important because, you know, which country you're in, that's whose airspace it is. That's where jurisdiction lies. So if I fly over just a tiny bit of Malaysia, Malaysia's going to go, oh, there's a plane in my airspace. And then after a few minutes, it crosses over into Thailand. I'm going to, oh, never mind. It's not my problem. It's theirs. It's in their airspace, so we don't got to worry about it. And then they're going to go, oh, there's a plane in our airspace. And then it crosses back over. They go, oh, never mind. We don't have to guide them because it's not in our airspace anymore.
I think if those military people if that's what they're thinking, they should be fired. Because at least if I'm in the military, I'd be thinking like the moment that it is getting close to our airspace, I'm watching it completely.
Well, I don't think the military is looking at it at this time.
I think this is for the purpose of communicating with air traffic
This is
control,
air
because
traffic
whenever
control. This
you're
is
crossing
not
into a new
military.
country, it's protocol for you to switch to that channel.
Right, so they're waiting for the handoff. They're waiting for them to say, this is Malaysian Flight 370, checking in, but it never comes. And then by the time they're like, well, maybe we should check in with them, it's crossed back over.
Gotcha. So the two flight towers, we'll say, on both either Malaysia side or Thailand side are kind of waiting on the other side to pick up the flight, maybe.
Right.
Well, I don't think it would be uncommon for them to see a flight that is going in the direction of Thailand and say, oh, okay, I'm not even going to like communicate with it. It's going to Thailand. They'll pick it up, you know.
Right, and then going back on what was said, I mean, my comment was kind of dumb, thinking that it was military looking at someone crossing over the borders. Because like you said, the military has been watching this the whole time. And
I don't think they're watching it live,
I don't
though.
think they're
I think they go,
actively-
like, the next day and they go, what the heck was this that happened last night?
Right.
Well, it just seems interesting that they would come to them and say, this is the information that we have. It seems like, I feel like if you're in the military, you should always be watching.
Maybe. But note that the military didn't give them, the public, this information for a few days.
And another thing to note, too, is, I mean, at this time, because this was so, like, early to midway through the flight, the airlines didn't know where the plane was at. So they're not notified yet that it's way over here. So they're not looking for it over there. They don't know that it's over there. And so airlines...
They think it's up here. Yeah,
airlines-
or over here.
They think that it's gone
That they'd
into,
still gone
Vietnamese or Cambodian
toward
airspace by
China,
now.
right.
They're kind of tracking the timeline of the flight, saying, hey, Vietnam, have you picked this up? Oh, no, we didn't pick it up, but it should be in Cambodia by now. So let's check with Cambodian air traffic control. And as you can see, it's really early in the morning, too. And so my guess would be that the personnel working in the morning...
Takeoff was about 12:40 a.m.
Yeah, I would assume it was...
Oh, yeah, 12:41 a.m. Wow, it's 1 minute off.
Nice.
It probably wasn't that robust of a crew working at 12:41 in the morning to really put that much manpower and effort into looking into this. So they're just
And
all...
again, this is a very routine flight, so
Right.
they're probably not thinking like anything out of the ordinary is going to happen. They're just like, oh, it's another day at the old office cubicle.
Exactly.
Sure, and with it being late at night, everyone's sleeping or sleepy.
So anyway, back to the SATCOM.
Okay.
There is a phone.
on the
There
plane.
is a satellite phone on part of the SATCOM system. So when Australia, there's
And this SATCOM is always on? Is
always.
that okay?
I don't even think there's a way to turn it off unless it malfunctions.
Okay.
So they try to call it twice, and during a 6-hour window, which is between here and here somewhere.
Okay, so somewhere between 1:30 a.m. and
Okay, that's a 1 hour
So
window, but I don't know.
So the sat phone antenna was reporting data
For 6
for
hours.
6 to 7 hours after they lost communication with the plane.
so for 6 hours after 1:30 a.m. they're trying to contact the plane.
Yep.
Which, looking at the flight path, if that was only an hour crossing over Malaysia and bordering the Indian Ocean, then 6 hours could put them easily into India, I would think.
Okay, so sorry, I kind of got confused on myself on what I wrote down. So it lost SATCOM at the same time the military did, at that 222 over the Andaman Sea.
Okay, bordering the Indian
But-
Ocean. Okay,
For the next 6 hours after that, it was attempting to connect with Australia. It was still sending signals.
so Australia's getting more or less pings.
Right.
Kind of like a request to connect or
Right.
something similar.
Request to connect via Bluetooth.
Yep, for
That's-
6 hours.
That's a good Bluetooth system.
Okay, and during the 6 hours, Australia tried twice to call the sat phone, but no answer. But sat phones have communication, and it communicated that it was received and that the phone rings.
What?
So, like, if it was not on, you wouldn't even be able to connect to the sat phone to make a call. But it connects, it rings, but no answer. But it connects and rings, meaning it was connected to the plane.
And was receiving a signal.
Right.
This was after.
This was about 6 hours after takeoff.
Interesting. And this is with Australia that they're
Yes,
getting this
is-
information.
This is the Australian SATCOM station in Perth.
So
It's satellite, so it doesn't matter whose it is. It's just connected to that one, apparently, to Australia's satellite.
yeah, it's kind of weird.
So it actually, Australia gets jurisdiction over the search because of this. So almost all the search efforts afterwards are,
Because Australia has the last.
I guess,
Thing.
I don't know what jurisdiction protocol is, but I would think it's just I would think Malaysia would take over, but
Since they're original.
right, or maybe whoever is closest to, like Thailand or whatever that one is beneath it. I don't know
Yeah.
what country that is, but ow, mother.
Huh.
So, with those pings that the SATCOM was sending, they're able to tell how far it was from the satellite.
Nice.
Because you can do it
Triangulates it.
it sends the ping to the thing and then it replies back. And, from plane to space, it's a decent distance. It's not instant. It's not really, it takes only a couple seconds, but they're able to time that and tell how far away it is, and also then they're able to tell what the altitude is roughly of the plane.
And giving a radius of where it would be based on that information.
Yeah, and based on that information, I'm really not gonna be able to explain how this is gonna sound weird, but because of how the Earth is curved, so if let's say the satellite's at the North Pole and it pings down and it can tell it's at from this distance, it can tell it's at the North Pole because that's the only distance available.
Well, that makes sense because it's all on angles and
Right.
such.
But if it's double the distance of the North Pole, well, it's not the North Pole because that would be underground.
Yep.
And it's not within so far of the North Pole because that would also be underground. So it's within this circle,
Right.
that distance.
on that line.
Right. It's going to be a circle on the Earth. Mm-hmm. But with all that information and the pings, after that last ping or whatever from the military,
Bordering
it
on the
takes
Indian
another
Ocean.
turn. according to this information. Straight south.
What?
Let me see if I can find another picture. Let's see what we got here. There we go. So this one's a bit more difficult to read. So, oh my gosh, what is this? I don't care. Picture, 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 picture. There it is. Okay. This is that line I'm telling you about. That circle that they're telling you about. And based on the time it takes, they can tell it's within here to here. So meaning it's somewhere in this triangle, which means either it crashed right there, or what is more likely and taken in what people think happened is it takes a straight turn down south.
Going completely into the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Oh, yeah. And the final communication was made on this black line. So it did apparently make it somewhere on this circle, if you make a perfect circle with that.
Okay, so on that line that you're talking about, that is how many miles would you say off the west coast of Australia?
No idea.
Looks like it is 1,000 miles, probably like 1,500. Okay.
It's pretty much in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Any islands in that path?
Don't think so.
I think Madagascar is the next closest thing besides Australia. And then obviously Malaysia and Thailand north. Is that Indonesia right under
Right under what?
right under Malaysia and Thailand? What country is that?
I don't know, man. I wish I did.
But this, they say that this arc that it landed on would have lined up perfectly with how much fuel they had in the plane. So they had roughly 25% more fuel than they needed to get to Beijing. And so the time that it would have taken them to take this flight path and go down there would have roughly coincided with about the time that they would have ran out of fuel.
So to go and search this area, you asked how far it is. I don't know the distance, but it took them 6 days just to get there to start searching that area.
In a ship.
Probably.
Because obviously not flying.
Yeah, I'm guessing, yeah. They searched a 4.5 million square kilometers. Needless to say, they didn't find anything.
This was a multinational search, right? So it was Malaysia,
Oh yeah, Malaysia's
Australia,
involved. I think maybe
the
that's
US.
why Australia was involved. They got close.
U.S. was involved too, right?
That's
Is
theory
that
time.
getting into theories?
That's
Okay.
theory time.
Ooh. Okay, so the theory is that someone they had some information on Hillary Clinton, and
So
she made a whole flight disappear?
So there's things called hydrophones underwater. Do you guys know what a hydrophone is?
No.
It's a...
Is it the same one
It's a
that you
mic-
could buy back in the 90s and you could talk to your friends while taking a shower?
It's a microphone that measures sensitivity in the water.
Huh.
Its main purpose is, I think, earthquakes
Ah, okay.
and plane crashes. So if a plane crashes into the surface of the water, the hydrophone will pick up that vibration. And you'll be able to tell, like, the closest hydrophone to it that picked it up.
And perhaps if you have 3 hydrophones to pick it up, then triangulate the position of
Right,
it.
yeah. Based on how strong each one was, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So, and they said if it crashed in that area, a hydrophone would have picked it up. They listened to the hydrophones, and there was something, but they said it honestly just kind of sounded like a boat driving by kind of thing. Like, it wasn't enough to be a plane crash. It was more of like a low rumble as compared to a bang. They didn't think it was a plane crash. But, I mean, there was something, is what we're saying. There's no way to tell what it was. Okay, moving on.
Yes.
This plane has 2... It's a Boeing something. Anyway, so it's a good plane. It's got 2 underwater locators. basically GPS units that can survive underwater for this exact purpose. And they have 40 days of battery life in them. So we can just look at those, right? Nope. No signals were found.
So one of the reasons I heard that might be the case is that apparently the batteries were expired or were in need of upgrade by this time, and so
How old is the plane? Do we know that?
I know that at the time it was the biggest commercial aircraft available, but I don't know how new it was. I know it had somewhere within the vicinity of like 10,000 flight hours on it, but that
I
could
don't
be
know what
used
that
up
means.
real quick.
I don't know.
If you're
Yeah.
flying all the time. So
They did get a signal from something. They weren't able to tell what it was, but it did give off a signal. They sent a submarine to it. There was nothing there. So they don't know if it was
Atlantis.
maybe, but they weren't able to find anything. They have to call off the search because nothing comes of it.
And how long was the search? How long did they spend searching?
Month.
yeah,
Okay.
it was the biggest and most expensive like search.
It
and
still is
rescue
to this day,
Yeah.
I think.
in aviation history.
Okay.
16 months later is our next thing. And that is in Réunion, France, which is somehow right next to Madagascar.
An
It's like a
island
French
off of...
island.
Right. Some people found a metal plate looking thing on the shore. This is a year and 4 months later.
Okay.
Long time. Metal plate shows up, and they're like, kind of looks like a plane part. We should probably contact the government, kind of thing. They get involved, and officials say this is a part of that plane.
Had the same serial number.
Yeah, it had like the same serial number on it or
Wait a second. They get a plate, like a specific plate that then has the serial number of the plane on there?
Yep.
That seems quite suspicious.
There.
All in all, this keeps happening. They find 31 pieces. 31 different pieces.
Each one having the serial number on it?
And so this is what we got. 3 pieces were confirmed pieces of that plane. 7 were classified as almost certain. 8 were classified as highly likely. And 3 were likely. And then 11 of them were unidentifiable is what I wrote down.
How many unidentifiable?
11.
Of how many total?
31.
Okay.
I like their naming scheme. It goes confirmed, almost certain, highly likely, and likely. Like, those are all likely.
But the 3 that they found were all pretty much confirmed to be from the right wing, if I'm understanding.
Yeah, they were from one of
Is
the
that
wings.
right?
I remember that.
The right wing specifically, from what I've
They
read and looked into.
Yes. They analyzed the pieces, had professionals, all that stuff. No burn marks. So they were like, there's no explosion.
Now, would there be burn marks if they crash into the ocean?
Well, I mean, there were still... well, okay, sorry. There was no... I don't know how they do it. There wasn't an... they said there was no explosion evidence, but there were what they would classify as, quote, burn marks. So, but they were like, it's not an explosion, but there was something there that could be classified as burn.
Okay.
So, no explosion, but maybe a fire. Maybe. This is in 2015. They have to suspend it again until 2017.
Suspended again. So, a year and a half later, after the flight completely disappears, and they do the search, then the debris washes up on the shore of the island.
Mm-hmm.
So then they start searching again at that point when they found debris?
I think so, yeah.
So, from what I understand, the Madagascar or whatever government, was in charge. From my understanding, they took it to Madagascar.
Or was it not France? Because it was
Government.
on a France island. French island?
I could be wrong on that. But whatever government body they took it to, Malaysia found out about this and was kind of like, hey, you need to stop until we come and identify these things. Like, you need to put this on hold and don't do any more looking into this. We need to come, see what you're talking about.
They're telling France that.
Yeah, they're telling whoever is coming out publicly and say, hey, we found this debris. Like, hey, put this on the back burner. Like, hold off. We need to come check this out before you go any further into, like, reporting this.
Okay.
So a little fishy there.
Yeah. And in 2017, I think, 2018, I don't remember when, a company, like a new startup called Ocean Infinity took over. Like, this is an American company that, like, I think their sole purpose was to find this thing. And they searched for a year and found literally nothing. Not a single thing.
And they searched with a contract with the Malaysian government saying, no find, no fee. So if they don't find anything, they don't get paid. So they go into this fully expecting to find something.
Right.
And they find nothing. And they never get paid.
Not a single thing.
So here's something interesting I'm seeing is that the ocean currents of the Indian Ocean, with the path that the flight came down going south from Malaysia, the current would go in a counterclockwise motion, being where the very last area on the south side of the Indian Ocean to the west of Australia, if that is where they crashed, then if the current carried debris, it would go counterclockwise from there, going around the west coast of Australia, off the coast of Malaysia, off the coast of India, curving back down the west side close to Madagascar, hitting the island there. So that's a long way to travel, going next to a lot of the countries and land masses that are currently searching for that flight.
It was a year and 4 months later that they did end up showing up. But yes, it is weird. I agree with you. I wrote down their altitude. I'm trying to remember how they found the altitude out. Maybe it was because of the SATCOM?
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no, I think it was with the radar or something. Because on the way back, the first turn back from the South China Sea over Malaysia and Thailand, they say that normal flight height is 43,000 feet.
And they were cleared to fly at that height, too.
Right.
That was their last cleared altitude to fly at.
And they were all over the place. It once reported at being at 4,800 feet, which is
Pretty darn low.
really low compared to 43,000 was the standard, apparently. And it reported as being as high as 58,000 feet.
Okay.
Professionals said that's not even possible. So it's possible that was just malfunctioning equipment, just giving off weird information. But if it isn't, this thing was going up and down like a freaking roller coaster. Like straight up and straight down.
Okay. Do you know over what period of time that record is being taken of them going up and down? Is that just over the hour
It's
when
like
they
that.
sign off? And
Right. Yeah.
so during that time that they are crossing over the Malaysia landmass and going up into the Bay of Bengal, close to it, they're going up and down.
Yeah. I also don't know how they figured this one out, but I wrote it down. They knew that the plane was taking manual turns, meaning they knew the autopilot was off. So, like, these turns that you see were done by a person, not by a computer system. So, now we're getting into theories here.
Okay.
Something weird is that the captain had a flight simulator in his home, which is not uncommon by any means at all. He's like a not decorated, but veteran.
He was like 55 and had tons of flight hours.
Oh,
under
he
his
was
belt.
like, and he had never had any problems ever.
And he was training the newest pilot, so his
His
co-pilot
co-pilot, that was his
on
first
his
real flight.
Yeah, I think it was
Or
either his
third
last
or
training
something like
flight
that.
or his first flight after being fully vetted as like a real pilot.
So he was new. He was a newbie. On his flight simulator, they found a suspicious recent flight path that ended right up near the Bay of Bengal.
A previous flight, previous to Malaysia 370?
Well, yeah, because
Yes.
how else would he have done it? Because he's dead now.
Okay,
So
I
go
don't know if I
back
followed
in-
exactly what you said then
So
before.
he has a flight simulator, and every
Right.
flight it does logs itself. So like if I do a flight, it records it and puts it into his computer.
Uh-huh.
And then you can go look at it later and look at the path you took in the flight simulator. And there was a weird looking one that was kind of similar that ended in the Bay of Bengal. So like, what's up with that?
Well, and he deleted it too. They had
yeah,
to go in and
it was like
recover that.
it was restored.
They had to go in and recover that data. The FBI actually was investigating that, and the FBI was the ones who recovered the data and saw that it was similar to the flight path.
Or maybe no, it didn't end in the Bay of Bengal. It ended in the Indian Ocean. Sorry.
Okay.
So, kind of where this one ended. It's kind of weird. So they say it looks incredibly similar to the potential path that we have mapped here. We obviously don't know if this is 100% accurate,
Sure.
but it looked incredibly similar, but not enough to be sure.
Okay.
I think it's also important to note that at this time, the pilot had been... So he was always known as... This is Zahari. Is that his name? Captain Zahari.
Yeah.
So he's the main pilot. He had always been known as being like a very friendly, lovable guy.
He would always come back and talk with the passengers because
Yeah.
he loved like just conversing with everybody and being a cool dude.
Do you know
Like
who was
everything.
also a very charismatic guy?
Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
But so they, all of his coworkers and things said that he treated everyone like his family, and in the weeks and days leading up to this flight, his demeanor had completely changed and he'd gone very cold.
Okay.
And at this time, he was going through a separation with his wife, and he had an established family. He had kids, and so he had been separated from his wife and kids, or was in the process of being separated from them. And so at this time,
Wait, he's really?
yeah.
He was getting separated from his wife?
Yep.
That's pretty big.
I didn't.
So
I didn't write that down. I wrote down no good motive. He had 3 kids, wife, great with money, and no unusual spending beforehand.
Yep. So from all the reports that I've heard is that his behavior completely changed in the week or two leading up to the flight. He went very cold with people, and he was in this separation with his wife and kids. So maybe that coldness was due to emotional distress, from his separation, or as other people theorize, that he was getting ready to, take his flight off course and
Right.
do something bad. So.
But there are so many more theories.
Right.
Okay.
Also,
So theory number 1 is he commits suicide, takes everyone with him,
right.
and had practiced this on a simulator.
That's one of the theories, yes.
Okay.
Very
Well, sorry.
roughly. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say current, current thing that's been released as official right now is that the plane crashed and they haven't recovered it.
Okay.
So
It's just
that
a
is
plane
the
crash,
current
like, nothing.
explanation. Plane crash, no survivors.
Not like terrorist, and not like suicide by pilot. Is that what, there's like a term for that? I can't remember.
Yeah,
what
I
it's
don't
called.
remember what it's called.
Anyway.
Murder?
But it is interesting that you say terrorist.
Yeah, sorry, I shouldn't have said that just yet. Give me
Sorry.
a second. Something I forgot to mention was that there was a controlled glide. And what that means is once fuel runs out, it's got wings, you're up in the air already, you can just glide for as long as you're in the air.
Uh-huh.
And that, I don't know how they knew that, but it did that. They knew it did that. It didn't nosedive into the water kind of thing. Based on this, the pings and the speed of it and the height, how fast it was dropping in altitude and that kind of stuff, they knew it was a controlled glide.
So from what I understand, after 9/11, these kinds of things were built into the tracking systems of not only the SATCOM, everything like that, but the engines themselves were made by Rolls-Royce, and so there were two Rolls-Royce engines on either side,
Mhm.
and that Rolls-Royce themselves, apart from Boeing and apart from all the satellite systems, have their own tracking systems on the engines. And so I'm sure that there's something that they can
Maybe,
tell of, like,
yeah.
when the fuel runs out, the engines go into this mode, or like the wings do this special thing to
Right.
glide.
But yeah, so that seems interesting. I don't know if it was like if it was suicide, why wouldn't you just get it over with and go, and death on impact kind of thing? If you land like, control glide and then
Yeah, it
skim
seems like
across
he's almost
the water.
toying with people, like in a similar way Ted Bundy did some
He's not
creepy
Ted
stuff.
Bundy.
I'm just hey, if he's killing people, like I look at this
believe
as
it was him. I'm going to say that right now. I don't believe it was him.
I don't either.
okay, and I'm fine with there being something that's more likely. I'm just saying that if it is possible that he killed everyone on there, then what kind of psychotic person, and they would be psychotic like Ted Bundy was, that maybe he gets off on hearing people screaming, and so he's doing these ups and downs with the plane because he likes to hear people scream.
In my mind, if it was controlled glide, that's either more of a try to keep people safe or maybe remorse. Or like changing your mind, like, oh crap, like I don't want to do this, I need to take this down gently and hopefully someone finds us kind of thing.
The altitude change does...
Although they say
is-
that's most likely malfunction, that altitude change I was telling you about.
Right. Well, I mean, you could think that if there really was a fire on the plane and they're freaking out, maybe at that point they lose control of the plane or something. But the other theory is if they're clocked at 58,000 feet, that's above cruising altitude, and that is to the point where cabins need to be pressurized.
Yeah, like
highly.
that's... So, oh, right, I didn't even think about that. Sorry, keep going.
Well, so at that point, hypoxia is the lack of oxygen, and so it's very possible that at that altitude, if the cabins weren't pressurized to the right level, then the pilots could pass out. And at that point, who knows if the autopilot was turned off? If they can track that all these turns are manual, and if the autopilot's turned off, pilots get hypoxia, pass out, and that plane's going all over the place.
There's also a theory based on that is that he took him that high on purpose so that all the passengers would pass out.
And then it just glides down with everyone asleep.
Yeah, I mean, no struggle.
Yeah.
Or maybe like I don't want these people to freak out in their last moments kind of thing. If it actually even went that high. We don't even know.
Okay, what's the next theory?
Give me 2 seconds. Yeah, we'll look at that later. And going off that again, this guy had a spotless flight record and no history of mental illness.
This is the main captain,
Yes.
not the
Zahar.
train.
But
trainee.
it is important to note that he was and still is the prime suspect.
right.
The captain.
Okay, so
The
here's
captain.
something. We're still on him. Sorry, I keep finding more on
So
this guy.
the captain wasn't the one having a divorce. It was the trainee.
No, the captain was. The main captain, Zahari, was the guy going through the separation, the guy that had the information deleted from the flight simulator.
Do we know how long before this flight that?
I want to say it was
Happened.
fairly recently before. I can't give you an exact range, but it was recently enough to where they're like, oh, this is surprising.
Okay, here's a quote from the air traffic control of Malaysia, the last person he talked to. He said, quote, he did not read back the assigned frequency, which was inconsistent with radio telephony procedures. So, meaning, I didn't write it down exactly, but what they do is, like I said earlier, on the handoff they say, Malaysian 370, signing off, and then they'll say the frequency that they're talking on. Like the air traffic control will say, sending off you frequency. And then they'll respond with signing off frequency.
Okay.
That's just what you do, and he always did that. He did not do that this time. He did signing off then signed off. He didn't say the frequency, which doesn't point to anything in particular, but they said it was weird. Because he always did it, and it's procedure.
Right.
So, I don't know, maybe he had something on his mind and wasn't thinking right, or I don't know. But that was something.
Well, so
Ooh. Okay.
going back to what I said before about him being the prime suspect, in cases where planes disappear, the pilot is usually considered the prime suspect because they have control
They're
of the
the ones
plane. So
controlling.
they're the ones first that they do psychoanalysis and background checks on the pilots first and try and vet them out as innocent or guilty first.
Okay.
But he was the prime suspect.
Right around that turn right there.
The turn after crossing over Malaysia the second time and then
when
going northwest.
Right as they turned around the island of Penang,
Okay. His hometown.
which
island.
was his hometown, the co-pilot's iPhone pinged a tower on there.
So are they low at that point?
Probably. Well, I don't know what the range on those things are, but it was close enough to ping the tower. And that part was actually omitted from public reports. They did not tell anyone that. Take that as you will. I don't know why they wouldn't tell anyone that, but that was purposefully left out of public reports. And again, that's his hometown, and you can see it turns around it.
Right.
And that's people thinking, all right, that's him saying goodbye to his hometown before he dies.
I mean, yeah, it might be like a suicidal thing that you see some of those. I mean, you reminisce about either good times or, yeah, if it's his hometown, that's where he's got his family that he's going through that divorce with. He flies over and just thinks, yeah, that's my hometown. So I was looking at the question of how low you have to be flying to be under radar. And I think you need to be at somewhere like 1,000 feet.
That's pretty low.
So the SA-6 air defense system can engage targets using radar down to 100 meters, which would only be 300 feet. It doesn't seem very likely that you would be able to fly a huge jet under the radar.
Anyway.
Anchor.
That's what do you call it?
How the cookie crumbles?
No, that's theory number 1. Theory number 2. What's the next theory? Mr. Munchie.
Terrorist involvement.
Of course.
Am I thinking of? I didn't write this down, but am I thinking clearly and thinking there were 2 people on board that like had fake passports?
Yep.
Ooh.
So two men that one had an Austrian passport and one had an Italian passport. Boarded the plane.
Done. Can't trust the Italians.
And bought their tickets with cash. And
Okay.
after investigation, both men were deemed to be Iranians
Ooh.
that had stolen passports.
Is there any connection with the 2 men together? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, they boarded the plane together. They were both together.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, is there any connection that the 2 men had previous to the flight?
That I don't know. So the current connection that they've made and that they've deemed from their families are that the 2 men were fleeing Iran. So they were asylum seekers trying to get out of the country and get to safety. And don't quote me on this, but I want to say that they had a deal with the Malaysian government that they would be transported to China and get safe passage to China.
Okay.
And I think they did end up saying that the terrorists, they weren't terrorists, probably, just because they...
They weren't terrorists. Probably.
Just because they were pretty sure they were just trying to seek refuge.
Right.
But you really can't verify any of that.
But they didn't have any previous terrorist activity, if that's what you were asking. Like, no other...
Not necessarily previous terrorist activity, but I mean, just if they had any connection of, oh, by the way, they worked together in the same building, or they...
If there was, it wasn't released to the public.
The strangest thing about that was that their passports were not legit passports.
Right, that's
and that they paid
suspicious.
cash for the flights. So it wasn't traceable back to them that they paid with a card or something like that. They just paid straight cash.
So if this is something that they did have a deal to get to China, is that information that the Malaysian government can confirm? So where does that information come from?
I cannot speak to that exactly.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Theory number 3.
Okay.
This there was cargo on the plane as well. This wasn't just passengers. There was also like cargo being transported, and a lot of that cargo was lithium-ion batteries, and a lot more than they were supposed to have, apparently. Commercial load of lithium-ion batteries, according to the cargo manifest. It was carrying a lot more of these lithium batteries than the cargo manifest declares. The weight of the batteries doesn't add up with the weight of the cargo container. So it's a lot heavier than, like, if it said 100 batteries, but it weighed 200 batteries worth. I don't know the exact numbers of either of those, but it had a lot of batteries on it.
Okay.
And it has happened before. I don't remember what flight it was, but there was a flight in the past that did catch on fire because of lithium-ion batteries.
Okay.
And the fact that they have so many of them
Yes.
could be a cause. And there were burn marks on that piece of
Quote.
the plane.
Okay.
So that's another one. And, you know, that's why they took the U-turn, but who knows what happened after that. Why... that, it seems the most logical to me, is the fire. But why on earth would they turn around, then take a right, then take a left?
So the first turn of coming back makes sense that...
They're trying to emergency landing.
Right.
But who knows? There's another theory of this co-pilot's new, and no one really knows much about him. Pilot gets up, takes a leak, co-pilot locks the door, then does his thing.
Does his thing Ted Bundy style.
I guess, but...
What's with you and Ted Bundy?
yeah, seriously, you are going off on
It
Bundy.
just started with talking about the pilot being charismatic and loving everyone. Like, everyone loved Ted Bundy.
I don't.
You need to watch some of the freaking scary
You'll
documentaries.
love him after that.
But all of these women that know he is a murderer
Okay, those
are still attracted to him.
Yeah, because they're crazy.
For those ones, 100%, yes. But then also you have the church congregation that was coming to his defense saying, oh no, Ted would never do this.
Right. This isn't Ted Bundy, though. We don't know what's going on.
Just saying there's psychotic people out there.
That's another option. That's also happened before. I don't remember what flight that was either, but pilot got up, co-pilot locked the door, and then just ran him into a mountain. It happened in the past. So there's not really much to go off of on that, though.
So along with all of these theories there are many different theories woven into the terrorist side, saying it was either a jihadist thing or somebody took control of the plane, and one of the theories is that they landed it and hid it in Pakistan, and that all of this satellite data and everything was spoofed or was faked. Somehow they were able to fake all of this data, saying the plane took this course to throw them off of where they really took it, which was to Pakistan, and hid it away there.
So for me, I would want to know which governments each one of these bits of information as far as tracking the plane goes, where that information is coming from country-wise. Because if it's coming from a whole bunch of different countries, each adding a tidbit to the picture, then it doesn't make as much sense to me, obviously, that they're all in it together and they are faking the information and it's hidden in Pakistan or something. Not to say that it couldn't have been hijacked and taken somewhere. It just seems odd that then these pings of information of trying to connect with the plane and all of this, if they're coming from different sources, to me that gives more validity that that's got to be real where they're pinging the plane at the time. So then what about the debris? So what's the conspiracy theory with the debris? Because it seems like it's a little too convenient.
Debris, if you want to go in that sense, that's another theory, is that it was actually shot down by the United States Navy. It was like, oh, what the heck are you doing in our airspace? You're not responding, shoot. And then to cover it up, they cleaned it all up, and then after that, so long, everyone kept asking questions. Hair in my mouth.
So those belly shots with Austin.
And to cover it up, they clean everything else up, but after so long, they're like, everyone's still asking questions, they're not letting this go. They stage this stuff, and hopefully everyone goes, oh, that's what happened, it crashed and washed up, case closed.
So why the United States, though?
I don't remember.
See, because that's...
Oh, because it flew over, the projected path was over, like, some random island that has a Navy base on it.
There was a military base
in
the area. And that's how they tracked it on the radar, there was a military base.
No, it was Malaysian military
that
tracked it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because, if this is... I could very easily see a government accidentally shooting it down and then that not looking good for the government, which at that time was Obama. This would have been in his second term. When was Benghazi? That was just before the election, so that would have been 2011.
2011, yeah.
Huh.
So one of the theories is that this was published on The Independent.
Okay.
So take it with a large grain of salt, and they also kind of made a joke when they published this, but there were apparently email reports of this plane carrying a nuclear warhead to North Korea, and the plane did have enough fuel for it to go to North Korea, and it flying on this path to China theoretically could have been in line with where they would have gone to go to North Korea.
So why the turn then? Because North Korea then, rather than turning left going west, now you're going away from North Korea.
So a lot of these theories are where this spoofing of data comes in, leading a false trail of breadcrumbs of where the plane actually went. And then that's where the theory of the extra cargo, this weight not matching up with the weight of reported cargo, has led people to believe that this could be possible.
So what else was on there? Was it a bomb?
Exactly,
Was it...
Exactly.
Okay.
This is, on terms of that, this is what someone said. That says, an email we received suggests that someone on board hijacked the plane and kept its location concealed by faking a flight plan from an uncontrolled airport. Then the pilots could pretend to be a small business jet and proceed to some hidden airfield somewhere where no one would be the wiser.
Right. So...
But then how could that be with Malaysia military saying this is where...
Maybe they're tracking something.
Is Malaysia and the U.S., are they allies?
Who isn't, besides North Korea and China?
I don't know. But this whole nuclear warhead thing ties into a few different theories. One, that they actually delivered it to North Korea. 2, that the plane was hijacked by somebody, or 3, that the Malaysian government was involved in hijacking the plane, and they kind of have control over the information of, where this went and things like that. So,
here's another one that says Russian special ops took it. An article in New York Times Magazine hypothesizes that nefarious actors could have broken into an electronics and equipment bay on the 777, accessed through the first-class cabin. A well-trained hijacker could then have started pulling the plane's electronics apart, and faked some of the satellite data that researchers have used to pinpoint the flight path. Jeff Wise, I don't know who that is, claims the plane must then have gone north into Asia rather than south of the Indian Ocean into Kazakhstan, where there are runways, buildings large enough to hide a Boeing 777. It's a well-researched piece that doesn't prove anything. So that's another thing saying that it was faked. Which, I don't know how you would fake a flight path like that when the military's tracking it. There are smarter men than me out there. But if you could, that kind of lines up with this really weird flight path. Like, straight, slight right, U-turn, hard right, hard left. Like, what the heck's going on there? Like, I could see that being faked, if it was possible. I don't know if that's even possible.
If I were faking it, I wouldn't be doing so many turns. I would just
Well, it worked, didn't
turn
it?
it directly into uncharted area. Like, instead of going left, going west, and then going northwest towards India, and then them dropping out the
South.
comms right there, why not just continue going southwest into the Indian Ocean?
Because they wasted so much time with each turn. At the first turn, they searched there. Then they searched at the U-turn. Then it went up to the Bay of Bengal. Then they searched there. Then they realized maybe it's down here in the bottom by Australia. And then they searched there. They're wasting so much time everywhere else.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Assuming that you could do that.
I'm sure you can.
But I mean,
Well,
this is information coming from different sources, different countries,
absolutely.
and that's where
That's
it doesn't make sense.
that's the thing with this, is that a lot of these are conspiracy theories. So
They're all conspiracy
They're all
theories.
conspiracy theories.
See, I like the bad government actor one the most. That makes sense to me, that you accidentally, or worse, you purposely shoot it down, and
Yeah, here's that
then
one.
you cover it up.
So-
There's a U.S. military base located in the middle of the Indian Ocean. One theory suggests that the plane was headed there on some sort of kamikaze mission, was shot down by the U.S. military before it could even reach its target. The Americans would then have faked the satellite data, scooped up every last bit of debris to keep the fate of the plane and its passengers secret. This one is particularly unlikely since the cleanup of an airplane would have taken way too many people to get things quiet.
Now, and also in going with that, not to say, in my opinion, that the government couldn't do it, but it is odd if that would happen with the plane getting shot down and getting close to that island in the middle of the Indian Ocean. Then that doesn't make sense why from the beginning all of the cutout of communications and then the left turn and then the right turn, and why it doesn't, to me it doesn't explain the beginning of all of that.
Right. So there's a theory that I like, and there's still a lot of details to this theory that I don't know. But about a month before the Malaysian flight happened, there was this same exact plane took a different flight to China, and I don't know if this is either when it was landing or when it was getting ready to take off, but it was taxiing either onto the runway or from the runway into the terminal. And during this time, hit another plane on the wing. So the right wing of the plane hit another plane, gouged this plane, and there was a big chunk of the right wing that was taken off or severely damaged. So they had to put this plane into repair for a couple of weeks, and then repaired the plane. And then it was good to fly again. So roughly a month later is when it took the last flight. So if reports are correct that these 3 confirmed pieces are from this wing, this right wing, then it's theorized that this was some type of cover-up by either the Malaysian government or some other government, and that they used this old wing that had the same serial number on it and would have been identified as directly linked to this plane, could have been found, and then they say, oh my gosh, we found this wing to this plane and it crashed in the ocean, and that's the story. But really, it could have either been shot down, it could have been hijacked, whatever, and they use this old wing that's been taken off and damaged to throw in the ocean as debris and say that that's the confirmation that the plane crashed.
And that's interesting. I think that there could be a lot of that. It's just weird why they would wait a year and a half before so-called finding that debris. It seems like maybe you would find that debris a lot earlier just to close the case.
Right. So during this investigation now, so remember the Malaysian government, when this debris is found, they say, hey, put the brakes on this. We need to come check this out.
Yeah, that's weird too.
So they send people to go check this out, and there's actually one of the Malaysian officials that gets assassinated while he's in Madagascar investigating.
Okay.
So he's assassinated. I believe they launched heavy artillery at his car that he was in, blew up his car and killed him.
What?
Let me pull up the facts on that real quick.
Oh, yeah, who? Sorry, I've been spaced out.
I'm pulling it up.
Was it
He was saying
Zahid Raza?
Yep.
On August 2017, an honorary Malaysian consul in Madagascar was shot dead in an apparent assassination.
Yep. Hussein Ali Zahid Raza. So
Appeared to be specifically targeted.
So it says this. It says a representative of the independent group, which has been following the disappearance of Flight 370, said the timing of Hussein Ali's death was suspicious, as he had been scheduled to visit the Malagasy Transport Ministry to retrieve the debris that they found and return it to Malaysia. The representative noted that Hussein Ali was of French Malagasy nationality, but he was a Malaysian official or diplomat or whatever, and added that the diplomat's death had been met with stony silence from both French and Malaysian authorities. The diplomat's car was riddled with bullets, and a French news agency has speculated that he had been killed as revenge for his alleged involvement in the 2009 abduction of several residents of Indo-Pakistani descent. Other sources have denied this, and then note that he was not convicted of any crime related to that incident. So...
But, yeah, maybe he wasn't convicted, but maybe they still thought that he was involved, and so they're getting revenge, killing him. But, yeah, that is another level. Right. So, perchance saying that the Malaysian government isn't the bad actor, or a bad actor in this, they're genuinely trying to see what's going on, and other governments, whoever they are the ones doing the bad acting. Man.
So, are there any other theories you wanted to cover, Jack?
I got one or two I could bring in if you wanted, but...
So what is your belief, Jack?
Oh, aliens. That's
one of the theories, yeah.
It's either aliens or they got sucked into a wormhole or something like that.
Okay, a Bermuda Triangle, but the Indian Triangle?
There's a one called the Asian Bermuda Triangle theory.
Okay.
Let's see, then there's one that's... There's somebody... Malaysia's former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad wrote that he believes the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, CIA, must know something about the plane's fate. He claimed that Boeing, the plane's maker, and certain unnamed government agencies are able to take control of commercial airliners, such as the Boeing 77, remotely if necessary. That was put in effect.
No, that's
a real thing.
No, I'm not saying it's not a real thing. I'm saying, this is ridiculous that we freaking get on a plane and the government can just take over at any time.
Well, that was implemented after 9/11.
Because of 9/11, it's required. If someone hijacks it, or someone dies or something, it can be controlled remotely. Right. Like if the captain passes out or something. So it could be what's called cyberjacking, and they just take over. And then he said, airplanes this big just don't disappear. Certainly not these days with all the powerful communication systems, radio, satellite tracking, filmless cameras, which operate almost indefinitely and possess huge storage capabilities. For some reason, the media will not print anything that involves Boeing or the CIA. I don't know. What's interesting is, in my mind, it mostly points to just the pilot just committing suicide. But if you Google it, if you Google Malaysian Flight 370 theories, that almost never pops up as one of the, it does, but it's never like one of the top theories. Almost never. So I don't know what their reasoning is. Maybe I missed a certain piece of thing, but no one thinks it was him.
Yeah.
So, which one of these theories do you lean towards, or do you have one of your own? Yes.
Oh, jeez. My mind, I'm kind of leaning towards the U.S. shot it down. And then staged the debris.
Okay.
That makes the most sense to me. But I don't know if I believe it, but that's what makes the most sense.
I don't know that I necessarily believe more that the U.S. shot it down. I don't know what I believe as far as the first half of the theory. But I do believe that the debris was staged. It's too...
By who, I don't know. But yeah, that's just way too...
Whether it's the Malaysian government, whether it's independent hijackers and the Malaysian government wanted to cover this up, or whether there's the U.S. is involved, whether North Korea is involved, whoever's involved, I think that there's some kind of cover-up between them and the Malaysian government, or just by the Malaysian government, and that this debris was placed intentionally. So when they found this debris, they had biologists analyze it, and the pieces of the wing that they found, it was in the water for, 16 months. So
it would have had...
They reported that the barnacle development on the wing was not consistent with what it would have been.
It was only 3 months it was in the water or something like that, not 16.
Yeah, and it wasn't consistent with how it would have been submerged, and it also wasn't, the type of barnacle wasn't consistent with the water. I guess the temperature of water affects
also,
barnacle
it's kind
growth.
of weird that's, I don't know if you guys saw, but from where they think it crashed to that island, that's a long ways. I find it incredibly unlikely that 31 different pieces all made it to that island.
Right. That's a really good point.
Maybe one, if one showed up, I'd be like, okay, yeah, maybe. But seriously, 31 pieces all going to the same place?
Especially where the current requires you to go counterclockwise, going past all of those other...
That is if it even crashed there.
And taking into account that the only fully 100% confirmed pieces are from the wing that was also replaced
there were only
a month before that.
There were only 3 that were 100%. Yeah, the wing was replaced. I forgot about that. You talked about this, didn't you? I wasn't paying attention. But it was replaced recently. Not replaced, but pieces were fixed. And so they had pieces of it already, old pieces.
There's they call it a boneyard in Alice Springs, Australia, where it's kind of like a place where either they fix planes or planes go to die, basically, and they have kind of like a scrapyard. And so they theorize that that's where this wing was taken, and then it was placed at this island. But it is fishy that those are the only 3 pieces that match up exactly, serial number, 100% confirmed to match up with the plane.
11 were not even identifiable. And then there were, math, 20.
So yeah, it is odd that, well, I wouldn't say odd. If all of these pieces go together on the same plane, all of these debris pieces, it is odd that you get so many of them and they're all found at the same time. So, yeah, if it were just those 3 serial number stamped pieces, then... Yeah, it's just so weird that they're all found at the same time. And there's so many of them so far away from
Thousands of
anywhere
miles.
where the plane could have been.
So that's my theory. Cover up. It's just too convenient.
Who covered it up, though?
That's the question. That is the question.
I don't think it's terrorists, because terrorists love taking responsibility.
Yeah,
no one's come out and said
credit for it.
This is our doing.
And I don't think that they've got the means to go through so many layers of all of that hacking, turning things off. That doesn't make sense.
I don't know.
Ryan, what's your theory?
So my theory is that the debris is definitely part of a cover-up. What I have a hard time with is trying to pinpoint what happened during that beginning stage when they lose contact and when they have tracked them. So they lose contact in the South China Sea, and then they track them going back over Malaysia and then up towards India. So that part doesn't make sense to me of what would have to happen at the very beginning. I mean, all signs point to hijacking of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
That the pilots are no longer in control. With it being a suicide, that doesn't. You would think that he would just crash it. Not that he would be flying around prolonging the.
Right.
Especially, because men in general, whenever they commit suicide, they do it quickly and they do it effectively.
The guy in charge of the search in Australia, I believe it was, I don't remember who, but he claims that this whole thing was the pilot creating, quote, the greatest aviation mystery, or something like that. So he thinks that the pilot was committing suicide. He's like, well, if I'm going out, I'm going to make it an interesting story. So that, I guess that's something.
Yeah. So it is interesting that the pilot information itself, or the pilot had some training that was found of him flying into the Indian Ocean. So perhaps what if the pilot himself is somehow involved with the CIA?
Maybe.
And it's the U.S. that then hijacks the plane, or could be part of another. So it was France that found the debris on that island?
It was, yeah.
It was on a French island, yes.
So, yeah.
Here's an interesting thing that I did not come across until just now. 4 days earlier, a plane was shot down by North Korea. A passenger plane that passed over its airspace or something like that. It was shot down by a missile or something like that. It was a Chinese airline, I believe.
How do you think that ties in?
They're trigger happy?
I
don't know.
But they're nowhere near North Korea, though.
They had enough fuel to get there.
I want to say that earlier in this same year that Malaysian 370 disappeared, Malaysian Airlines had a flight that was shot down as well.
Was it the one I'm talking about?
It might be the one you're talking about, but there was another flight with them that year that was... So it says Malaysian Airlines Flight 17, this is in July 2014, was a scheduled passenger flight from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur, so to the same airport this one left from, that was shot down on the 17th of July while flying over eastern Ukraine. All 283 passengers and 15 crew were killed. So either this was a really crap draw of the card year for Malaysian Airlines, or something else is going on with them.
Or a practice run of what they were trying to do, or a first failed attempt of maybe what they're trying to do.
But it's fairly fairly close. I mean, not that long before 370 goes missing.
Oh, I lied. Sorry. North Korea didn't shoot it down. They tried to and failed.
So
the one before.
As far as I don't believe that there's any flight going north into China, past China, or around North Korea, because both China and North Korea are super happy to show the world anytime that there's bad actors working against them. That they will try and say, look, you guys are terrible people, and you're out to get China or you're out to get North Korea. That constantly are putting out propaganda saying that. So it doesn't make sense that if a plane had gone up through or past China or North Korea, that they wouldn't call out that it was the Americans and it's the CIA that are out to get us, because they do it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So could it be China?
Maybe.
Here's the thing.
But then the debris doesn't make sense. And the Malaysia guy that gets killed, and honestly, okay, here's where I'm leaning towards now. This is where I'm putting my foot down. Lots of weird stuff was happening under Obama. He did gun running to a couple different countries during his second presidency. Delivered money to Iran. I mean, this could be another weird thing that happened that perhaps was a U.S. government cover-up.
I'm just in the boat of cover-up. I don't know who, because we could sit here for days and talk about every single possible government that's involved or situation.
There's definitely
too many
cover-up.
rabbit holes to go into.
Here's one more bit of information.
Another rabbit hole.
19 families of people on board claimed that the devices of their loved ones rang for up to 4 days after the jet went missing. You call a phone that's dead or doesn't have a cell signal,
Or
it goes
it's in the water.
straight to voicemail.
Yeah.
It doesn't ring. They claim for 4 days after they could hear a ringtone.
I know there were a lot of protesting by the families, and some were even threatening death threats against the Malaysian investigators that were investigating this, because they considered it a botched investigation.
But I don't think we can do any more. I mean, we know nothing. Us three in this room, we know nothing.
You guys let us know what you think. We've gone really long on this one, but
Really long, yeah.
let us know what you guys think, and if there are any major theories that we missed that you think are legitimately plausible, let us know.
I scrolled past like 30 different...
Yeah, there are literally hundreds of theories out there of like, this specific terrorist organization was involved, or this government hijacked it and did this and this and this, and it landed at this airfield. Like, there's so many theories out there to go into. A lot of them don't, in my opinion, don't carry that much weight. So you got to sift through all of them to find the ones that are fairly plausible, in my opinion. But who's to say?
This whole thing is just crazy, though. Like, I don't know. We didn't do the best job explaining it. I thought I knew the timeline fairly well, but it's...
I thought you did a pretty good job of
Thank you.
going over the events.
I tried, but there are better people out there if you want to go listen to... There's some YouTube videos that I saw that, like, do what we did, but, like, show a map along with it, because, they are a video platform, and this is not... So,
Except for our premium subscribers. They clearly get video of this conversation, do they not?
yeah.
The NSA video that's spying on us right now.
Although
from
it's
Jack's
a
computer.
although it's a high threshold, though.
It'll be just the side of my face, but...
Well, I think we've rambled on long enough.
We've
on this
exhausted
one.
everything we can.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was crazy.
We're shooting for Georgia on the next one.
Send us your state stuff, even if it's not close. If you live in a state, then send us your... Even if you don't live in a state, if you live in
A territory?
Province.
we'd love to go international.
Or Washington, D.C. Not a state, but...
Puerto Rico.
London.
Yes.
Guam.
London, perhaps. Guamanese?
Guamanese.
Guamish.
The Guamish people. Guamish country.
But yeah, no, yeah, send us what you got if you're in Georgia or any of the whatever. I mean, we can Google it, but we'd love to hear what you guys want to hear.
Yep. Hit us up on the social media.
The social media.
Yep, we'll have that in the show notes for you to go and at us or DM us directly.
Man, I feel like we were really serious in this one.
Yeah.
Felt kind of weird that we weren't cracking jokes every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
There's just so much to think about, though.
This
It was good. It was very intellectual.
This was
I
one
enjoyed
of our
it
more
thoroughly.
well-researched episodes, I feel like, though.
Yeah. It was nice to have someone to explain it to here, Ryan,
Yeah.
because he kept asking questions that, like, yeah, I guess that wouldn't have made sense if I just said that, without someone stopping
But I mean,
asking.
but these are all like, I mean, obviously everyone just puts out their own theories or their own little facts of how they put things together. But yeah, there's no way to make sense of this without wading through all that information. But we all agree on one thing: there is definitely a cover-up afoot.
Oh, there is definitely. But who knows? Let us know what you think. Follow us on the social medias. Send us what you got.
And
even
scary stories.
Yeah, just your encounters, because we got to get some more of those in.
Happy election.
Happy election. Good luck to everyone. Either way.
Thanks, guys. We love you.
I don't. I tolerate you.
I love you.
But Austin loves you, and that's really all that matters. But, yeah, have a good one. Bye-bye, everyone.
Hey guys, this is your host Austin. I did just want to let you know that this episode we did have a little bit of audio trouble, so there are some parts that might sound a little bit robotic or where our mics have a slight echo to them. I hope that you'll bear with it. It is one of my favorite episodes. It's a super interesting one, so please give it a listen. Let us know what you think, and as always, thanks for the support.